knew when I was younger, I was very fortunate to have a horrible life. You know, people say, why the hell you, it made me think a lot. It made me visualize what true success was. I always thought growing up, man, if I had some money, if I had some women that loved me, whatever the fuck it may have been, I would be successful. But through the years, I started realizing that true success in life is being proud of yourself. And how I became proud of myself was conquering demons. There's a lot of people that I talk to nowadays who email me who are billionaires, millionaires, have everything in the fucking world, beautiful family, beautiful wife, beautiful job, more money than they can count, 8 or 9 homes, 10, 15 high-end cars, and they say, but why am I fucking miserable? I said, what the fuck have you truly done? Not the surface shit. What have you done to really put yourself out on the fucking edge and wake up every fucking morning with the doubt of I might not make it? Truly, as a man, most men, no matter if you're soft or whatever, what's missing in a man's life is that we are all warriors. We don't want to look at ourselves that way. But if we don't go to war with ourselves and have that one big war, we feel empty, and we don't know why we feel empty. I was fortunate enough to have several fucking wars with myself. And when you overcome yourself over and over again, that's where you start to find that I am proud of myself. And success is not being proud of yourself. Success is, I have a lot of things. But being proud of yourself is really, it comes down to a war against yourself that no one else may even know about. But it's a war where you come out on the other end clean as a motherfucker. But the whole time you're going through it, you're dirty as shit. And you're fighting, you're grinding, you're fighting, you're grinding. But you come out the other end saying, man, that was the biggest trophy I ever got in my entire life, but it doesn't sit on a fucking mantle. It sits in your brain. It sits in your mind. Every trophy I have, it's in my brain. I have none in my house. They all are in my mind. The 40% rule is you don't gain 60% overnight. What you do is you keep on pushing past that 40% by 1%, 2%, 3%, 5%, 10%. Every week, every other week. You go to where you stopped last time, whatever it may be, but you got to get to that point where you want to stop. And then that's when this begins. You get to where you want to stop, and then that's when this begins. Go another 5% more. What happens to your mind is your mind stops feeling sorry for itself. It realizes the mind is the most powerful weapon in the world. Why? Because it knows all your insecurities. It knows all your doubts. It knows all your imperfections. And it leads you there, and it doesn't want to go there. The mind is the most powerful weapon because it controls you. Until you control it, that is when everything changes. So once you start to tell your mind, look, motherfucker, I'm not done yet. I don't stop when I'm tired. I stop when I'm done. And when you keep this going, you go past that 40% to 50% to 60%. Pretty soon, you know what, you're at 99%. And 100% is obviously you're dead. But the whole thing about it is you have to learn to control your mind versus your mind controlling you. Whatever went on in life, I had to be the motherfucker that could take anything, that could carry any cross, 2 or 3 crosses, as many crosses. So I developed this callous mind, a man that can walk through a fire and not get fucking burned, who can take words and not say 6 of swords may break my bones. No, words hurt. But I want to get to the point where nothing hurt me. So I started to develop myself. I developed myself. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about fame. It wasn't about women. It was about I have to have so much fucking pride in myself that nothing can hurt me. Can't hurt me. So basically what I did was I said, how am I going to do this? I'm going to have to literally start doing things I don't want to do and doing them to the best of my ability, because that's when I started gaining this mental edge. I started realizing life isn't about all this bullshit. Life is about one thing: being proud of the person you see in the mirror. And once that started happening, the mind started callousing. And the more the mind started callousing, the more people couldn't fuck with me anymore. And I became unstoppable mentally. I have to be able to attack life. So I realized we have to become driven. We have to become obsessed. Because an obsessed human being, if the whole world around you is blowing the fuck up, you're going to get your shit in. No matter what happens in life, no matter what you're going through, you're going to get your shit in. You're going to figure out the time to get it in. You're going to make the time to get it, whether it be a workout, whether it be work, whether it be family, whatever the fuck it may be. You're never going to have an excuse to not get your shit in. So I became obsessed.
So obsessed is different than the motivational talk people get.
Yes. Motivational talk is just that. You know, you go into a room, somebody gives you motivation, you leave, and you forgot what the fuck they said.
Good. What is the cookie jar?
Well, the cookie jar is something that I invented years ago also. It's basically what happens in times where life is kicking you in your ass. We've all gone through, even the snowflakes, they've all gone through something tough. But what happens in that horrible time of life, whatever you're going through, we forget how badass we truly are. And we allow that one situation to dominate our lives. And we forget about the big picture of life. We just focus on the one negative thing.
You know, you say a lot of things that are counter to our culture today, to our PC, politically correct culture.
Right.
Do you have people who come after you because of that?
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of people that come after me. I have a lot of people that do not like me. And I like that. I absolutely invite them to continue coming after me. Because all that tells me is exactly what I thought a long time ago. I used to be just like them. People who come after people like me, people who are raw and honest, they come after me because they don't like themselves. They come after me because what I'm saying to you is hurting your feelings because it's true about who you are as a person. You might be lazy. You might be insecure. You might have some problems with yourself and in your life, and you're not willing to fix them. So Merry Christmas. People like David Goggins do exist. And I will exist for the rest of the fucking time I'm alive and I'm breathing. Because guess what? The only way you're going to fix yourself, people that don't mind my message are the people that have already gone to war with themselves and say, you know what? I got to fix myself. Because all I'm saying is, I'm not saying I'm better than you. All I'm saying is I was once you and probably worse than you. And how I fixed myself was I became raw and honest about I was a piece of shit. And I'm not going to say, oh, no, I wasn't dumb. I just didn't try hard enough. No, I was a dumb motherfucker. And I didn't try hard enough. And that's okay to call yourself out. It's okay to be mean to yourself if it's warranted. But yes, people don't like me. But guess what? Like I said before, once you like yourself, everybody else can go to hell.
Everyone that tells you, oh, I've never had a weak moment, I've never been lost, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
All right. You know, it's funny how you hear, these social media gurus and these people, they've never had a bad day in their life.
Never lost.
The house is beautiful, the car's always clean, the kids are always doing great. There's nothing that ever goes wrong.
Yeah.
No. They're going through the same shit that everybody else is going through.
Yep.
They're actually maybe going through it even more. They just don't know how to deal with it. So that's why they have to put on this happy face, this front all the time. Yeah. All right. Listen. When something happens to you, and it's gonna happen to every individual. It's happened to every individual sitting in this room. Yep. It's going to happen to every individual that's listening to this podcast. It may have already happened to some of them. Something happens to you in your life. It could be at an early age. It could be your teenage. It could be later on. How you handle that situation, pretty much determines how you're going to handle everything else.
Yeah.
You can use it and as a crutch for the rest of your 30 years, as an excuse, if this didn't happen, if I had this, and people have such a sympathetic ear for, oh, it's okay, yeah, I understand. And those are the same people that are in that group.
Yep. They love it. They love to hear another one that luck just happened to.
Yeah, right. It's just like, this, everything that happened, you knew somebody. That's why you got on this, you were able to get on this show.
Yeah.
You were able, okay. Everybody knows somebody.
Yeah.
It's what you do when you meet that person and the advice they take you and how far you can take it that determines where things are going to go. And you have other individuals that when something happens to them, they get up. And I always have a saying that they always say people are going to get knocked down. I agree with that. But every time you get knocked down and you stand up, if you're standing up the same way you fell down, you're not going to get anywhere. If you get knocked down and you stand up, you have to stand up stronger. You get knocked down and you get stand up again, you have to stand up taller. You get knocked down and you stand up, you have to be smarter. You get knocked down, stand up, you have to be more driven. Every time you get knocked down and you stand up, you have to stand up as a different person. If you just keep standing up, it's like you're like a punching bag. Knock down, get back up, and
those old punching bags you can't knock over.
Right. Yeah. So you have to, and those are the individuals that get to the top of their business. And even when at the top of their business, things go wrong. You think everything they've done is worked? No.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. But they have very short memories.
Yeah.
That's the one thing they have. They have very short memories. Successful people, honestly, they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit about what you think about them. They don't care what society says. All right? They're going to figure things out. Too many times in life, everybody else is worried about what everybody else is going to think, what everybody else is going to say about them. They're more worried about that. They're more worried about how they look, what the perception is. If you're motivated by somebody else's story all the time, don't be enamored by somebody else's story. If you're constantly enamored by somebody else's story, guess what? You're going to forget to write your own.
Yeah, yeah. Big time.
And, and we're in LA, and there's people could tell you they're so glued on to these reality shows, and they could tell you everything about a character in there, what they did in their life, what they ate, who they're arguing with, what the conflict is, who they're dating, and so forth. And that's their whole life.
Yeah.
You're living somebody else's life. That's what I mean by when somebody else took your identity. Now, that's what those shows are set up to do. They're there to suck you in.
Yeah.
So now you become them instead of becoming who you really are.
Yeah. And so let me ask you this. Let's say I'm listening to this right now and I'm like, Tim, I believe you, and something sounds familiar here, but you don't get it, man. I live in Wisconsin, and my parents are so negative, and my girlfriend just dumped me. And how would you suggest to go about going down the right path and listening to the right voice and figuring out the right, where do you start?
Well, here's the thing. You have your own voices in your own head. That's the first voices you should be listening to. Mm-hmm. All right? The problem is you have too many voices in there. So you need to get the voices that shouldn't be in there out and get the voices that should be in there, and you have to become the maestro of your brain. You have to get them playing the same tune every single time. You have to control that tune that's going on in there. All right, listen. The parents, they're going to think what's best for you. They may not know about entrepreneurship. They might not know about anything. They're like, hey, I'm raised, you go to work, you get a paycheck every 2 weeks, you get benefits, you got a 401. To them, that's what success is.
Yep.
All right? Go to college. I'm a big advocate of going to college for certain individuals that want to pursue certain things.
I agree.
Okay? Everyone always gets up to, oh, you don't need college. No, I would not be where I would have been without going to college and learning my trade.
Yep.
It would have just not happened. Yeah. All right. The best way to turn your parents' negativity into something positive is when you set out to do something, become a success. Go do it. Show them that you're all in. Show them that you're all in.
Yeah.
All right. And then guess what? They're going to be so proud of you.
Yeah.
They are going to be so proud of you. Okay, you know what? Listen, there's not an individual in this room, except maybe that young lady sitting over there, that hasn't had a girlfriend leave them, or they had a relationship that they broke up with.
Yeah.
What did I tell you? Successful people have the shortest memories. They just go on. You think if Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, Tom Brady, Serena Williams, at every time they threw a pass and it didn't go, and it got intercepted, or it was incompleted, or you missed the game-winning shot, or you missed the volley that could have won, that they literally think about it all the time? How would that create a situation when they had to do it next? No, they don't forget about it, but they don't think about it. Too many individuals all the time, they're constantly thinking about the negative things. And that's why I said, those negative things, you store them inside of you. That's what fuels your fire. It's how you don't forget, but you can't think about it. I have a saying that all the time. If you're thinking, you're not in the moment.
Yeah.
You are not in the moment.
And you see that a lot during like games and in that situation when it's time to go, and you know that that's the difference of that person performing or not.
Exactly. You know, if you hear this all the time. Don't think. Well, what's the first thing that happens when they tell you
about what? About
you think.
Yeah.
You start to think.
Yeah.
You know? But it takes years and years and years of thinking to be able to not to think.
Yeah. Is it like a muscle that you would train? Is that how you look at it?
Well, there's two types of the brains. And, listen, like I said, everything I'm telling you, listen, if you don't, I know you're a big advocate of YouTube. Look it up.
Yep.
Look it up.
Yep.
None of this stuff is bullshit. I'm not making this stuff up. There's science behind it. If you don't believe me, there's plenty of people that talk about it. You have the conscious brain and you have the subconscious brain. All right? When you do things over and over and over and over and over and over again, and this is where I talk about repetition, about mastering something. After you've mastered something, it goes into your subconscious. It's just like when you're driving.
Yeah.
All right? When you drive, most people, don't think about when they know how to turn the car on. They stay there. It's kind of...
We've all done that, like drive to work and not even be like, how did I even get here?
Yeah.
All right. Scary, but...
Loving comfort.
Yeah, absolutely. How have you been able to, in your life, see past the cloud of emotion to actually execute on things? Because I think what we were speaking about earlier, this challenge that young people have today, everyone has today, of just so much information, so much cloud of emotion, so many feelings, so much childhood baggage that you're bringing. Like, how have you always cut through that and execute on that?
What I try to do is just try to be still and understand that things come and go. Emotions come and go. The important thing is to accept them all, to embrace them all. And then you can choose to do with them what you want versus being controlled by emotion. A lot of times I've seen players, even myself, when I was younger, being consumed by a particular fear. And to the point where you're saying, okay, it's not good to feel fear. I shouldn't be nervous in this situation. Like, nah. And it does nothing but grow. Versus stepping back and saying, yeah, I am nervous about this situation. Yeah, I am fearful about this situation. Well, what am I afraid of? And then you kind of unpack it. And then it gives you the ability to look at it for really what it is, which is nothing more than your imagination running its course,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Because what you're saying is that when you're dealing with something, it's almost like, how can I get to the root of it?
Yeah.
Because sometimes what we're dealing with, like you're saying, it's an imagination, an illusion. It's not really...
It's not really a thing, like you think about game-winning shots or game-winning free throws, and people go to the free throw line and they're nervous about it. Well, what are you really nervous about? If you unpack that, okay, you're nervous that you're going to miss the shot. All right. So you miss the shot. Then what happens? People are going to be embarrassed. You're going to be embarrassed because thousands of people, millions of people see you miss the shot. All right. And then what? People are going to talk bad about you. Okay. Right. And so you're looking at it and go, are those things even important? You know what I mean? If that is my fear, like what is, you worried about letting your teammates down? Okay. Have you let them down before? Oh, I'm sure. In practice and things of that nature, right? They're still there.
Yeah.
And And so when you're able to unpack it, you kind of look at it for what it is, which is really nothing.
Yeah, I love that. Breaking it down. I think that's so important. I think everyone who's listening or watching right now, next time you're facing a fear, next time you're going against something, do that. Like literally unpack it. Don't just settle for your first answer, because the first answer is rarely the right one.
Yeah, don't hide from it. You know, you got to be able to look at it and, you know, and deal with it head on.
Yeah, I love that, man. And you talk about that because you talk about, you know, when you talk about missing 5 throws and you talk about getting over yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like getting over yourself. How did you get that mentality of just being like, I need to get over this. Like I need to get over myself.
You know, trial and error. You know, you grow up and you make game winning shots and it's awesome. And you come back the next day and miss a game winning shot and it's misery. And then the next day comes and you're back playing again. And you understand that life has this cyclical nature where it's, you know, what you do on Monday is fantastic, but then Tuesday is a bad day. But guess what? There's Wednesday. Yeah. So are we just supposed to live our lives like this the whole time? You know, versus just staying like this and understanding that it's really just a journey of evolution. Every day is just constant improvement, constant curiosity, constantly getting better. The results don't really matter. It's the figuring out that matters.
Yeah. And we all get obsessed about the results.
Yeah.
Like we get obsessed about like the output.
Yeah.
Not the input, of not figuring it out and not like changing things. What you said, trial and error, like the experimenting.
Yeah.
We forget to do that.
It's unfortunate, man. Like I've seen a lot of players, especially now, you know, in youth basketball dealing with that. You have players that are like bigger and faster and stronger, and, you know, their coaches are just coaching them for results. You know, we're just going to use your size that because you're bigger than every other 12-year-old out there to dominate today. But they're not growing, right? So they're just based on that result, but they're not focused on growing this young child into becoming a better athlete. And through that, teaching them how to become a more well-rounded person. And we're missing that.
Yeah. See what you've said there, I want to ask you this, and I'm not saying because you know, like you know yourself best and you know how you've got there. So I'm asking it from a place of humility, of learning. When I look at you, I'm like, you know, your superpower isn't just your work ethic. Your superpower isn't just like figuring things out. Your superpower is like you think strategically. Like that's a very strategic thought of saying this person could be this in the future if they were developed as a whole individual, rather than just like, let's use them for the short term.
Right.
Like, where did you develop that from, that ability to see beyond, to think deeper, to reflect deeper? Where did that come from?
Well, I had to do that because, you know, growing up in Italy, when I first moved over there, it was, you know, I didn't speak Italian. I didn't have any friends. You know, I had the game of basketball, and through sport and playing soccer, I was able to make friends and build connections. But it was a lot of time spent alone. And when I came back to the States, I wasn't the most athletic kid. You know, I was really scrawny, like really, really skinny, and had like major knee issues because I was growing. So I was the dorky kid with high socks and big old knee pads.
It's fashionable now.
It's fashionable now. It wasn't then. It wasn't then. And so I had to look long term, because in the here and now, I couldn't compete with these kids. I mean, there was kids that were like 12 years old with beards. Like I can't, what am I supposed to do with that? Like they're doing windmills and dunking backwards, and I'm happy to like tap the backboard, you know? So I had to look at it from a long term, because I wasn't going to give up on the game.
Right.
So I had to say, okay, this year I'm going to get better at that. Next year, this, and then so forth and so on. And then patiently I was able to catch them.
Yeah. I love hearing that, because I think so many of us kind of, you believe like when you see people like yourself, it's like, it's so easy as an excuse to ourselves to just be, oh, you're destined for it, right? You were made for it. It's kind of like that kind of, you know, like, oh yeah, it's, you know, but when you talk about saying, oh, actually, when I started, I didn't have the physicality that meant that I was going to make it. Like you had to figure it out. And I love it.
Figure it out, man. It's just piece by piece. And it's the consistency of the work, which I feel like a lot of parents are missing today, because we're not teaching that to our kids. We tend to say like kids don't want to do the work, but in reality, it's when we're failing them, because we're not leading them the right way and teaching them, you know, how to fish, you know what I mean? And so like the consistency of work, Monday, get better. Tuesday, get better. Wednesday, get better, right? And you do that over a period of time, you know, not like 1 month or 2 months. I mean, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And then you can get to where you want to go.
Yeah. I think it was Bill Gates who was talking about that. He talks about how like we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 10 years.
No doubt.
Right? Like it's like that, you know.
No doubt.
I think everyone thinks about it, like, what can I do right now? Like, how can I make it happen? But like with you, I think people always ask you also like, you know, how do you deal with losing or failure? What I'm intrigued by is how someone like you deals with winning. Because you've won again and again. And like I was saying earlier, you won, obviously we know you won in basketball big as an athlete, but you're winning now, even in the work you're doing here as a storyteller, as a producer, right? Yeah. It's amazing to see so many incredible awards coming through. How have you dealt with winning? Like when you win, what goes through your mind to help you to continue with?
Well, it's still different. Like in basketball, it was different because I expected to win, Like I expected us to win championships. I expected us to win 5. Quite honestly, I expected us to win 8. And so when you have that vision in sports, it's a direct competition. Like I know how hard they're working. I know how hard we're working. I know what their strategy is. I know what ours is, So it's a little different. So when we went in the NBA, it was like, yeah, we expected to do that. But now we're going to come back and we're going to do it again, And so it's that constant, like, all right, you're churning. You win one championship. I'm back in the gym the next day, working, getting ready for the next one.
So when you were in the locker room, you had the Halloween theme song playing on repeat, which aside from being hella creepy, I assume is a way to get into some sort of alter ego or emotional state.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, getting into character, and how do you kind of get your mind frame wrapped around to a place where nothing else matters. And you got to find those songs that can channel that for you. Music for me wasn't just like what's popular now, but it's like music that can take you to an emotional space. Smells Like Teen Spirit was one of my favorite ones to listen to because it would take me back to high school. Like if I'm playing in a game, a heavy pressure game 7 of a playoff series, I listen to Smells Like Teen Spirit. Why? Because it took me back to high school where basketball was just fun and you were playing with friends and there was all this hype and media wasn't around. You're just in a gym with like 200 people in the stands in high school watching you play. And that song would take me back to that place. And then emotionally, that's where I would be when I would perform.
I can't remember where this was. You mentioned you studied actors to get mindset. It was kind of a throwaway line. But I'm wondering who you studied the most. Like, who are you watching and you're like, I love that cold-ass shit from whoever in this movie?
Hilary Swank and I had a lot of conversations about that, actually. Talked to Kate Winslet about it as well. But we really got into how they build their characters and how they get into character. I've spoken with Larry Moss about that process as well. And there's something to that because like as an actor, you are trained to get into that zone, find that pocket. And as athletes, the psychology is the same. Sean Penn as well. We had a great conversation about it as well. The discipline is different, but the behavior is the same. Before you start a game, how can you lock in? You get into that mental space where nothing else matters. You're completely locked in and focused on what you're trying to accomplish as an athlete out here. The noise of the crowd doesn't matter. Whether the cheering or booing doesn't matter. You're just completely locked in. How do you do that?
It seems like they're on set, right? And you're on set, you're on the court, but you have feedback from people you don't necessarily want. If you do something wrong, you got all these people giving you negative feedback. You have to be able to block that out. They don't really have to do that.
Well, you could say being an actor, there's more pressure involved in it because you're dealing with a smaller audience when you're on set, right? And so the criticism, it's a one-to-one type of thing, right? Yeah. Somebody's looking at you in judgment. When you're in a crowd with thousands of people, because of the size of it, it tends to diminish the pressure.
It's like when you're speaking in front of 1,000 people, it's less personal.
Right. If we go and have a conversation in a bar in front of a bunch of people that are having their own conversations and every once in a while turn around and looking at us having our own conversation, okay. But now if you walk in and there's 2 people that are doing nothing but watching and critiquing our conversation, that's a little different.
Obviously, he had a lot of interesting rituals. You would hear about the yoga. You would hear about all the stuff that he would do. What is the weirdest thing he did with you in practice that you're like, what the hell are we doing here?
He had a Tai Chi Master come to practice. And we walk out there and, the Tai Chi Master standing in center court and tells us to take our shoes off. And I'm pissed because I'm ready to play basketball. And he's standing up there and says everybody closes their eyes and stuff. And he does stuff like monk gazing at moon and talks about the fingertips and barely touching and the spirituality of all that. And I'm peeking around like, is everybody doing this shit? Like, what the hell's going on? And then, and big ass Phil's there doing it himself. He's like, he's doing this whole, doing all this stuff, And I'm like, damn, okay, I'm gonna try it. But honestly, I bought into it. I bought into the meditation. I bought into the deeper connection that exists within the game. And so when you watch our teams, or you watch any of Phil's teams, or Chicago teams, Game 6 against Utah, you watch our games, Game 7 against Boston, we were never rattled, ever. Because we're always in the moment, always in the present, always extremely calm, always looking at the reality of the situation and not letting our emotions cloud our execution. And that comes from being in that meditative state that he would teach and preach from day one.
Would he take you back? Would he take you back and say you had a terrible game and it was, the season prior? Would he take you back and say, we're going to watch this game. It was the worst loss we had. It was absolutely embarrassing for you to kind of see what things you did to improve. Was he that kind of
No.
It was more about fundamentals and improving the game.
Move on. He was very hands-off, right? In the sense of he allowed players to develop. He would allow you to find your truth and then go after it. And he was there to simply guide you along that journey. Which I actually learned from him, and that's how I parent. And that's how I coach my daughter's team now. So that's why I say he's a father figure, because I've learned so much from him as a coach that I take as a father, as a husband, and as a coach myself. But he was very observant.
Was he better one-on-one or one-on-few? Like one-on-one versus one-on-12? Like if I'm having a team meeting and I'm talking to guys to rally them or calm them down, or it's okay strategy, or was he very good one-on-one, just you and him, closed doors?
Yes, great conversationalist, but hated confrontation.
He hated confrontation.
Direct confrontation is not his thing. Doesn't do it. Never did well with it. It had a lot to do with how he grew up and his brother, his siblings, and father, and so forth and so on. Hates direct confrontation, and he knew that about himself. So that's why a lot of his challenges were indirect. He went to the media with things, so he's very indirect. He would never challenge a player directly. He didn't like that. Yeah.
He said one time you guys had a meeting and he sat you down and Shaq down and he says, listen, I know you guys think you're alpha. I'm a bigger alpha than the both of you guys. Did that ever take place?
Not really. No, it was more like, he would say it in film sessions, not with me and Shaq. Like, he never sat me and Shaq down. Like him, me, and Shaq.
He never
No,
said.
God, no. You kidding?
Why wouldn't he, though? Is it the confrontation?
I'm sure it'd be a little terrifying for him.
Got it.
Phil, you ever seen Phil walk? Phil, he's got like one good hip on like the best day of his life. It's like if some shit goes down, he's doing nothing to break that up. So I'm assuming it's a little intimidating. But what he would do is he would do things indirect. And it wasn't about calming the waters. It was about stirring up the waters and creating a storm that eventually would lead this broken ship to the shore it was trying to get to in the first place.